This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
This is Tamra Judge from Two Teas in a Pod with Teddy Mellencamp and Tamra Judge. Tamra here. As you know, my dog Rugby is like one of my kids, and I don't play around when it comes to taking care of him. Chewy is where I get everything he needs. He loves food, so always stocking up on treats and toys from Chewy, which my husband Eddie likes to buy for him. It always shows up fast, which is exactly how I like things. Chewy also handles the serious stuff, prescriptions, pet insurance, and the telehealth vet visits. And now they're opening up vet clinics across the country. And their 24/7 customer service, they just understand pet people. Plus, with Chewy's 1-year satisfaction guarantee, trying new things is never stressful. Chewy just makes caring for Rugby easier, and that matters to me. For life with pets, the answer is Chewy. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping at chewpanions.chewy.com/teapod.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration, support, and useful tools to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Listen to Joy 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Stuff You Should Know, a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Josh, and there's Chuck. And Jerry's not here, but we suspect she'll be along shortly. And that makes this, of course, Stuff You Should Know.
Yeah, it's funny this one came up from you.
Why?
Because semi-recently, we were hanging out with our friends, and Emily, we were talking about introverts and extroverts, and Emily said, someone said, yeah, you know, Chuck is obviously an extrovert. And Emily said, no, he's not.
That's a lie.
She said Chuck is an introvert because he loses energy in groups of people and he recharges by being alone.
Yeah.
And I had never really heard that, but that's true. But then after doing all this research, like, I am very much in the middle of the spectrum.
Oh.
And not, I guess, not quite an ambivert. Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah.
It really is completely dependent for me on any situation, who the people are, where I am at the time. It's very, very dependent on a host of factors.
Yes. So that means you are normal.
Right.
from what I can tell. And I'm really excited about this one because it's like Christmas and Halloween and Easter all wrapped up together because we get to tee off on social psychology, on the science press, all sorts of people, and really kind of disassemble something that I think most people walking around think they understand, but from everything I can tell, misunderstand is a much better way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this will get a lot of listener feedback because I think a lot of people spend time thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. Like I said, it's very easy to put people in buckets. I think if we were to talk about yourself and myself, people would say, well, Chuck's an extrovert, Josh is an introvert. We can tell by things they've said over the years, but it's just not that easy.
No, but you're right. And I should say you weren't right. Emily was right. You recounted Emily being right.
That's usually the case.
If you just kind of boil it down to that is, it seems to be, from what we can tell, the one distinction between introverts and extroverts, like where you gather your energy from. Is it from other people or is it from yourself not being around other people?
Yeah, but also it's like, I think it's, and we'll debunk a lot of this stuff, but it's not as easy as, you know, the fact that you don't want to be talked to on the Appalachian Trail or meet other hikers. That doesn't mean you're an introvert, because I've also seen you be the life of a party.
Well, that's when you get a little Captain Morgan in me.
But like, I was thinking about just, you know, work events and parties and things like that. If it's like a party with my friends, I'm usually all about it. But I could also be in the mood to not even go.
Yeah.
Or at a podcast conference. You know, I am way more likely to just sit in my room than go to the mixer. unless I know that like there's going to be people at the mixer I would really want to get to know and meet, and then I'm all of a sudden all about it. So it really just depends.
That's neat. I feel like I'm learning a lot about you right now because I just presumed you were always at those mixers.
No, man, I'm in the room a lot. I mean, you were always in the room, but I'm many times in the room.
Well, there's coffee in the room, so I just
That's
sit there and
true.
drink that. So let's kind of let's talk a little bit about introverts and extroverts. There's a woman named Susan Cain who wrote a book called Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And she basically says it comes down to a preference of where you get your stimulation. Like, do you prefer lower stimulating environments? Do you prefer high stimulation environments? And that it is just a preference. And in a lot of ways, she's right, but in a lot of ways, she's really wrong because it's not just a preference from if you're a psychologist or even a neuroscientist. Like, it's an actual ingrained, possibly brain-based biological response that people may or may not be born with.
Yeah, and we're gonna throw a lot of studies out in this one and a lot of statistics. There was a random sample of results in a 1998 Myers-Briggs personality inventory that said that introverts, and I love this stat, they might as well have just called it 50-50. Introverts made up 50.7 and extroverts were 49.3, with about 46% of men and 52% of women being extroverted and 54% of men and 47% of women as introverted. But you can find a pretty wide range if you go poking around the internet on how many people they say are introverted or extroverted. Yeah,
the one I've seen all over the place is somewhere between 16 and 50% of people are introverts, right?
Sure. Well, I bet you they're right.
Well, yeah. Somewhere in there they might be nailing it. Unless it pans out that introverts don't actually exist.
Right. Oh.
So those numbers you threw out, and I think the 16 to 50 that I threw out too, that's typically in the U.S. But the thing is, it's not entirely clear, Chuck, if those numbers hold steady. Like if you did that same random sample of Myers-Briggs results, 10 years on, would you get similar numbers? And if you wouldn't, why is that the case? Is it because somehow like populations are shifting? Or is it because, if you had sampled those exact same people from 1998, 10 years later, the results were different, would it be because people act differently because of their moods, and there's not like a lifelong bucket of introvert or extrovert that you can actually label people with?
Right. Or if people really evolve, and I say evolve or devolve, I guess in either direction, do some people that really used to be introverted, you hear stories where people say, well, then I learned to come out of my shell for these reasons, and now I'm a completely different person. And I think it's just one of these things where it is all wholly dependent on an individual.
Yeah, they're like, now I go beat up introverts on Friday nights with my friends.
But like this stuff is fun to talk about, but I just don't know that anyone can bucket people. You can make some generalizations, but I think it's so specific to each person that it's, which is sort of some of your closing thoughts, which we'll get to at the end.
Yeah, but we have a problem here then. We can at least set it up, right?
Yeah.
Because what psychology is trying to do is create a model that you can apply to every single human being alive and predict their behavior based on where they fall on the spectrum between extrovert and introvert and some other stuff that we'll get into too. So it's not just a question of, people are people. Psychology is really trying to figure this out in a really specific manner.
Yeah. And I don't think it's like a waste of time or anything. I'm not saying like, they should just let people be who they are, but because it is interesting. At the very least, it gives us something to talk about for 45 minutes.
For sure. So let's talk about what makes an introvert, and an extrovert, because there's a lot of misconceptions, but there's a lot of stuff that I think people assume that kind of fall in line with psychology's view of the behavior patterns of each.
Right, but also a lot of overlapping patterns, because I found myself in a lot of these from each list.
Sure. So you're an ambivert.
Right. Were you mainly introvert when it comes to this list specifically?
I don't know. Let's go through it.
Okay. Introverts, and we'll just go through these quickly, need quiet to concentrate. For sure, me. Are reflective, are self-aware, take time making decisions and consider them carefully, feel comfortable being alone, don't like group work, prefer to write rather than talk, have few friendships but are very close with those friends, daydream or use their imaginations to work out a problem, retreat into their own mind to rest, and feel drained being around others, especially large groups.
So I definitely check every single one of those boxes, except for take time making decisions and consider things carefully. Like I will often, I will consider things a lot. I do that a lot of times, but I also just kind of make impulsive decisions sometimes as well.
Yeah, but you also clearly don't need quiet to concentrate because you sent me music to listen to for the very first time in 15 years.
Did you listen to it?
I did, and it's funny that this all came up. Well, tell everyone what you sent, because I can't remember his name.
I sent you a Ryuichi Sakamoto album. I think it's called 05, and it's really amazing.
It's great. I loved it. But as soon as I put it on, and Josh sent this to me just to say, hey, maybe we'll just be like of one mind if we both listen to the same music. And obviously you were kidding around, but what I found was and what I know about myself is I can have music on if I'm, and when when we're doing Stuff You Should Know studying, it's my deepest study, but I got to have it really quiet.
Really?
Yeah. Or otherwise it distracts me.
I understand the principle because I can't, if it has lyrics, I just can't. I can't do it at all.
Oh, okay. So it's lyrics for you.
It's definitely lyrics for me. Or even an instrumental song of a song that has lyrics that I know, it will bring to mind the lyrics. So it has to be straight up instrumental all the way.
What if it was just lyrics that over and over said, concentrate, Josh, concentrate, Josh?
That'd probably work really well. I'll have to try that sometime. Maybe I can just sit on the phone with you and you can say that over and over again while I'm studying.
But for me, that's only like really big, serious concentration. Like if I'm working on a project, I love having podcasts or music playing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, yeah, that's another thing too. It's hard to listen to podcasts or anything where people are talking too. For the exact same reason for me.
For study?
Yes.
Yeah, that's impossible.
Yeah. You're talking about the Wright brothers and the invention of the airplane while you're trying to study extroverts and introverts. It doesn't really go very well.
All right, so go ahead, go over the extroverts' behavioral patterns.
I'm a little nervous talking in public, but...
That's because you're an introvert.
Extroverts, and by the way, it's appropriate to write it with an A or an O. So extraverts or extroverts, doesn't matter. Right. It's fine either way. But they enjoy social settings. That's a big one. Mm-hmm. I've seen that they're overall generally more optimistic. Mm-hmm. They seek attention. I saw that was a big one too. They're energized by being around other people. And as a result, they're friends with a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. As a result, they're sociable and outgoing. They tend to enjoy group work. That's the kind of work that they thrive in. They prefer talking over writing. They find it easy to express themselves, and they feel drained when they're alone for extended periods.
Yeah, I tick most of those boxes, but I also ticked a lot of the introvert. I feel like you don't tick many of these boxes at all. I'm looking, and
I'm pretty outgoing. I can be sociable. It really just depends on my mood. But if you were going to take an overall picture of me, yes, I'm definitely way closer to the introvert end of the spectrum.
What about this one? Because I think this one is kind of key and interesting, is feeling drained when alone for extended periods.
I wouldn't say drained is the right word, but I don't prefer to be alone for extended periods unless I feel like being alone.
But in that case, does alone mean like just with your wife? Like, what does alone really mean? Does alone mean literally by yourself?
So I think for extroverts, they feel drained when they're alone just by themselves. That they don't have somebody else to be an energy vampire on.
Yeah, it's weird for me, man, because I love being around people, but I could do a zombie apocalypse survival thing on my own.
Sure.
And I think I'd be okay.
Yeah, you got some good booze and some good food, barbecue grill that works, you'd be fine. It'd be awesome.
It's also interesting when, we haven't been in the office. Basically, our office environment is completely different now since the pandemic moving forward. But
wait, we have an office still?
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting that, like, I think before we became a podcast network, it's interesting that we became a podcast network because we were an office really full of introverts. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I would say.
And a lot of those people became public personalities in the end,
Yeah.
which is really strange.
Despite themselves.
Yeah, it's odd. And office is closing down for, I think, extroverts has probably been a problem.
Yeah.
I didn't think I missed it until I went to our colleague Pam Peacock had an art opening that I went to in my neighborhood, and I saw probably like 12 or 13 people from the office, and I had the best time. And I was like, I didn't realize I missed seeing everybody until I saw everybody.
That is really sweet.
Yeah, but then it was fun, not seeing them the next day.
Sure. Yeah, it does sound like you are a pretty big ambivert. So the fact that there is such a thing as an ambivert, somebody who really checks a lot of boxes on both sides, so they pretty much fall in the middle. The fact that they exist underscores a really important point, that introverts and extroverts are on a spectrum. You're not just one or the other. As a matter of fact, Carl Jung, who actually came up with this whole idea in the 1920s, said that if you were a full extrovert or a full introvert, you would be a lunatic. Like, there's just no such thing. But some people lean further toward one side or the other, but it's a spectrum. And again, it's not entirely clear if where you fall on that spectrum would be the same from 1 year to the other, 1 decade to the other, even, 1 week to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this is a good break time.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to go sit quietly and think about what I've done.
And get re-energized?
Yeah, we'll be right back.
This is Tamara Judge from Two Teas in a Pod with Teddy Mellencamp and Tamara Judge. Can we take a moment to talk about Chewy? I get everything for rugby from Chewy. His food, the treats, I'm constantly reordering, the toys he destroys in minutes, even his supplements. And it always shows up fast. Chewy also handles the serious stuff, prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. Their 24/7 customer service actually understands dog moms like me and cat moms, bird moms, reptile moms, all of us. And with Chewy's 1-year satisfaction guarantee, trying something new is never stressful. For life with pets, the answer is Chewy. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping at chewpanions.chewy.com/teapod.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. You can't order it, you can't borrow it, or simply hope it into life. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. Together, guys, we'll have meaningful conversations with the world's most fascinating people. Entertainment legends, sports icons, wellness experts, and everyday people will share how they find, allow, and experience joy. And I'll offer some of my own tips and takes on seeking a more balanced and harmonious life. If you're craving inspiration, support, and useful tools to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Joy after a breakup, joy as an empty nester, joy after a loss, joy as a caretaker. This new podcast will speak to you. Listen to Joy 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Mainstream media is full of cruel depictions of the unhoused, stories that shame and blame and paint the unhoused as a monolith. We the Unhoused is the podcast that's changing that. I'm Theo Henderson, creator and host, and for years I've created a space where the unhoused and their advocates can tell their own stories. In the last few months alone, I've interviewed unhoused parents, immigrants, mutual aid organizers, veterans, the LGBTQIA+ community, and the policymakers who make the laws that impact the unhoused existence. We the Unhoused is a 2-time Webby and Signal Award-winning show with many exciting guests on the horizon. Tune in this week for my interview with Dr. Jill Wicherick, a street doctor turned influencer whose work with the unhoused community has made a huge impact online and in her community. Listen to We the Unhoused on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Keith Giamanco seemed like a mild-mannered suburban dad, but secretly, he became someone else, a master of disguise who went on a crime spree. At the time, did it seem like a crazy idea?
It seemed very crazy, but I felt so desperate that I felt it was the quickest, easiest way out.
Did you allow yourself to think about how it could go wrong and what that might look like?
No, I didn't want to manifest that. I was trying to manifest success.
Every family has its secrets. But what happens when you discover that your dad has been living a double life?
That is not the look of an innocent man. This is going to change my life and my family dynamic forever, because everything that had existed prior in my reality is now untrue.
Listen to Deep Cover The Family Man on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Learning stuff with Joshua and Charles. Stuff you should know.
That's funny you threw in that Jung comment, because that quote, because I found the same one and thought it was interesting, because as it turns out, Carl Jung was one of the kind of first big proponents of studying introverts and extroverts, and a lot of his work, he's kind of known for it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he actually came up with it, but he certainly popularized it, starting in his 1921 book, Psychological Types.
Yeah.
And Jung's whole thing was that the division between introverts and extroverts is which way they directed their focus or their energy. Was it inward or outward? And that was the real distinction. And that was what people thought for a very long time, until, as we'll see, people came along and said, I think it's really kind of energy-based. Like, where do they get their stimulation? Is it inward or outward? And that seems to be the current idea. But Jung really kicked the whole thing off in the 1920s.
Yeah, which is... I think it's interesting that, I don't know, the 1920s to study something that seems very modern to me.
Yeah.
Personality types. There's also a dude, a German, I think Jung was Swiss.
Yes.
A German named Hans Eysenck. Eysenck, not Eysenck. I added an extra N somehow.
But it sounded luscious.
It did. Hans Eysenck. He was a psychologist from Germany who operated out of the University of London. Mm-hmm. He kind of took the baton from Jung. Did they work together, or was it just sort of a metaphorical passing of the baton?
I think it was like standing on the shoulders of giants kind of thing. I don't think they worked together.
Okay. But he came along in like the 1960s and developed a model of personality, and he put a lot of focus on extraversion and neuroticism, mm-hmm. which I think is very interesting. Because, I guess let's just talk about the links between the two.
Okay, so yeah, Eysenck's whole jam was that was the two boxes. You were either an extrovert or an introvert, and you were either neurotic or not neurotic. And it wasn't on a spectrum. He didn't see those on a spectrum when he started working. I'm not sure if he ever did. You were either one or the other. And when you put these two things together, you had a full picture of the human being. And it seems primitive to us today, but the basis of what he was doing, it's still carried on today. He kind of helped build these blocks that people have built on since then.
Yeah, and he worked with his wife Sybil, and with her ended up adding psychoticism mm-hmm. as a personality trait to create what was called the PEN model, the PEN model of personality. And I think, psychology or neuroscience would later kind of say that he was right in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But later on, psychology, they came up with their own big five personality traits, and they dropped psychoticism as a specific category, right. But they kind of took pieces of it and applied it to the other five personality traits and came up with a acronym, really two, I guess depending on if you're an introvert or an extrovert.
Or your mood.
It could be a canoe or an ocean.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at today. The big five personality traits is, as far as I can tell, the dominant model of personality descriptors. And canoe is conscientiousness, which is your degree of impulse control or your ability to meet goals. Agreeability, it's your degree that you trust other people or that you're helpful or cooperative. Neuroticism, and this is the same that Eysenck and the Eysencks considered neuroticism. It's your degree of emotional stability or instability. Like, do you get emotional really quick, or are you kind of like solid and steady kind of thing? And then there's also openness, which I saw described as better written as imagination or intellect. So it's openness to new experiences, but internal experience, right? And then there's extraversion. There's your canoe.
Right. That's right. That's the canoe, or that's the ocean. I guess ocean would be in a different order.
Mm-hmm. I can do that one in the ocean order.
That's okay.
Okay.
And what's really interesting about all this is and of course this is what you're going to do in a social psychology way, is to consider, like, all right, well, why are people like they are? Not just let's identify what people are, but and it sort of goes down to the old nature or nurture thing, which I've long been on record that kind of everything is a mixture of both. And it seems to be in this case, although there have been some studies, including studies from the Eysencks, the Screaming Eysencks. Great new band.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Where it seems in certain cases that nature has a bit of a nudge over nurture. In one study in particular in 1956 of twins, found that extraversion was correlated most amongst identical twins rather than fraternal twins, which would really put a check in the box of nature.
Yeah, and Eysenck went on in a 1979 study to basically identify the size of your cortex, your cerebral cortex, as directly related to whether you were an introvert or extrovert. And this is 1979. I think the Wonder Machine had just debuted, and they were probably $1 billion a piece. So this guy was doing this, I don't know, he might have been dissecting people after they died or something. But he, from what neuroscience went on to they went on and threw in their own 2 cents on this whole thing, and they really showed that Eysenck seemed to have been onto something.
Yeah, so one thing that we do know for sure, and there's so much haziness with all this, it can be a little frustrating, but one thing that they have really established is there is a supreme connection between being an extrovert and seeking reward, behaviors that seek rewards.
Yes.
And there is a pretty clear demarcation between introverts and extroverts when it comes to the I guess we can say the fact that extroverts are much more likely to seek rewards than introverts are.
Yes, and if you take that as correct, then that explains every other behavior in those behavior patterns, that extroverts are looking outward for some sort of stimulation, and you can see everything they do is reward-seeking behavior. Not reward like somebody gives them a Twix or something for saying a joke, although that might happen, and I'm sure an extrovert would love that. But more like by talking to somebody, they get a positive feeling from that. So they get a pop of dopamine. That means that going and socializing with people is reward-seeking behavior. They're seeking that pop of dopamine, which is, as in brain terms, the reward.
So that is the central why to all of this.
It depends. As we'll see, it depends. So they have shown that there are people that correlate with extraversion as we understand them psychologically today, that do have like this larger cortex that is linked to greater reward seeking. But it's also possible that these buckets that we've created, extrovert and introvert, don't really apply. So at the end of the day, what we have is some neurological findings that we're not quite sure. We can't say really confidently that they fit our model of extroverts and introverts, but it is a pretty good place to start.
Yeah, because the one example they gave kind of makes sense in that when thinking along those lines, which is an introvert. There may be an introvert who really loves going on thrill rides and roller coasters or bungee jumping or big adventures like that, but they say that extroverts get more of a rush out of something like that than an introvert might. Yeah.
So anything that could give you dopamine, it's not to say that introverts don't experience that. It's just to say that extroverts experience it more.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what they're deriving pleasure from. They're getting a bigger kick or a bigger thrill or a bigger whatever out of it. And I've seen that this actually leads extroverts into greater danger than introverts. Like they're
because they need that dopamine.
Yeah, so they're likelier to go do weird stuff that could get them hospitalized for an injury. They're more prone to accidents and being hospitalized for them. They're more prone to being arrested for crime or antisocial behavior. And when you understand it's reward-seeking behavior, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then, on the nurture side, there's going to be a lot of research, obviously, into everything from what your family is generally like and the cues that you pick up from them on how to live life to what really interests me, which is going back to being a baby. Because, you're sponging it up from the time you pop out and you're breathing oxygen. And I think, like in terms of the pandemic, and they talked about this COVID generation, not necessarily generation, because, maybe a couple of years, but I think there was a lot of focus on like grade school kids and teens and stuff like that and how it behaviorally will affect them. But I think there's going to be a lot of stuff many years from now about COVID babies that didn't go outside for their first 2 years. And this 2006 study, they found that there's a few studies here that kind of, I think, play into that one. One was from 2006 where they found that mother-child relationships can really have an effect on extroversion, and that if you are a mother and child who are really attached during very early stages of development, that the kid will end up being more likely to be extroverted later in life.
Yeah, if they have what psychologists call a secure attachment style to their mom, which means that they know that at the end of the day, they can run home to mom if something goes wrong and mom's going to be there for them, which gives them the confidence to go out and explore more. That makes sense. And it's one of those things that it makes so much sense that you should have a little alarm going off in your head, because it's one of those things that like somebody had a study that showed that, but it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, if you have a secure attachment, you're definitely going to be an extrovert. It's also not clear, are kids who are born extroverts likelier to form a secure attachment to their moms? So we're back to like a chicken and the egg kind of thing, and we just don't have an answer to that. So it's really important to be careful when you're interpreting some of the data that psychologists and the science press like to throw at you as basically settled.
Yeah, and it also doesn't mean, sometimes one of the effects of postpartum depression can be trouble forming an attachment for a while. That doesn't necessarily mean that baby's going to grow up to be an introvert because mom had a harder time bonding with that child early on because of postpartum depression.
Right. And I think we should do one on attachment styles. Like there's a big bunch of stuff that is associated with it, and it's really interesting. It does seem pretty predictive of behavior for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all that stuff. Anything about like early childhood development is just fascinating to me.
I love it too, Chuck. Let's love it together.
Another study in Japan, and this is what I was kind of talking about with perhaps COVID babies playing in, was they found that children of overprotective, or let's just say protective parents, have lower levels of extroversion. And that's what I was talking about with like, if there were parents that did not let their baby leave the house for 2 years because of COVID. Sure. Like what that would probably mean, they're probably protective and, maybe overly protective, as opposed to what thankfully we were able to do because there was no COVID, but we had our daughter out very early and thought it was very important to just get her out in the world in places where there are lots of people.
Right.
Even as a baby, I just think, I don't know, I think all that stuff really sort of matters.
Well, yeah, they say socialization, the more contact with other humans, it's the better off the kid is. That's the presumption, right?
Right.
The thing is, this Japanese study, what it seems to have turned up is that it's not lower levels of extroversion. It sounds like it's greater neuroticism.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean? Like they're what a lot of people think of as introversion, like social anxiety, a desire to not be around people because they don't feel comfortable. That's not introversion. That's a part of the big five, though, and it's neuroticism. That's what that counts.
So like a neurotic parents are more likely to have neurotic kids.
Yeah, and it makes sense like that you would pass that on, that could be a learned behavior, that you adopt for yourself, especially after years of being raised that way. It certainly makes sense.
Absolutely. What about discipline?
You spank, you thank them for being an introvert. That's the phrase that psychologists use.
Those T-shirts did not sell well.
We got a box of them
at the Pop Sci convention, right?
Right. Yeah, they're just sitting moth-eaten in the attic.
No, what it said was a 1966 study found that sons who were punished by their parents would exhibit more introverted behavior.
Mm-hmm.
This, to me, especially the fact that it was 1966, is, I don't know. I'm just leery of this one because what does punishment mean in that case in 1966?
Yeah, what's weird is there is a lot of tendency to cite really old studies when it comes to extraversion and introversion, despite there being so much work being done on it. So it popped up all over the place.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to punish kids these days, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can't
hit them anymore. So you got to do things like take things away or have time out. And I don't know. I guess every kid's different. But when I put my daughter in a room for any various reason, like I go in there a minute later and she's just happy as a clam in there doing her thing. Right. I'm like, this isn't a punishment. Or if I take something away, she's like, fine, I'll just go do this.
Yeah.
Like that. We haven't found a punishment that really works.
That's pretty awesome. I wonder how she's going to turn out in that result. Because even if you don't spank your kid, if you use guilt or shame, that's going to screw them up possibly even worse than spanking them is. So being a parent, no thank you.
Yeah, and that's something I have to consider a lot because I have passive-aggressive tendencies, and I had those foisted on me, and I do not want to pass that trait along,
Yes, for sure.
We like to think we're raising a good future adult.
Yeah.
That's how we like to look at it.
I really think you guys are.
I hope so.
You seem to be doing a really good job of it, so Thanks, off.
Man. I guess we'll see.
Let's take a break, and then we'll come back and answer a really important question I think is on everyone's mind. Who's happier?
This is Tamara Judge from Two Teas in a Pod with Teddy Mellencamp and Tamara Judge. Can we take a moment to talk about Chewy? I get everything for rugby from Chewy. His food, the treats, I'm constantly reordering, the toys he destroys in minutes, even his supplements. And it always shows up fast. Chewy also handles the serious stuff, prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. Their 24/7 customer service actually understands dog moms like me and cat moms, bird moms, reptile moms, all of us. And with Chewy's 1-year satisfaction guarantee, trying something new is never stressful. For life with pets, the answer is Chewy. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping at chewpanions.chewy.com/teapod.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. You can't order it, you can't borrow it, or simply hope it into life. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. Together, guys, we'll have meaningful conversations with the world's most fascinating people. Entertainment legends, sports icons, wellness experts, and everyday people will share how they find, allow, and experience joy. And I'll offer some of my own tips and takes on seeking a more balanced and harmonious life. If you're craving inspiration, support, and useful tools to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Joy after a breakup, joy as an empty nester, joy after a loss, joy as a caretaker. This new podcast will speak to you. Listen to Joy 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Mainstream media is full of cruel depictions of the unhoused, stories that shame and blame and paint the unhoused as a monolith. We the Unhoused is the podcast that's changing that. I'm Theo Henderson, creator and host, and for years I've created a space where the unhoused and their advocates can tell their own stories. In the last few months alone, I've interviewed unhoused parents, immigrants, mutual aid organizers, veterans, the LGBTQIA+ community, and the policymakers who make the laws that impact the unhoused existence. We the Unhoused is a 2-time Webby and Signal Award-winning show with many exciting guests on the horizon. Tune in this week for my interview with Dr. Jill Wicherick, a street doctor turned influencer whose work with the unhoused community has made a huge impact online and in her community. Listen to We the Unhoused on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Keith Giamanco seemed like a mild-mannered suburban dad, but secretly, he became someone else, a master of disguise who went on a crime spree. At the time, did it seem like a crazy idea?
It seemed very crazy, but I felt so desperate that I felt it was the quickest, easiest way out.
Did you allow yourself to think about how it could go wrong and what that might look like?
No, I didn't want to manifest that. I was trying to manifest success.
Every family has its secrets. But what happens when you discover that your dad has been living a double life?
That is not the look of an innocent man. This is going to change my life and my family dynamic forever, because everything that had existed prior in my reality is now untrue.
Listen to Deep Cover The Family Man on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Learning stuff with Joshua and Charles. Stuff you should know.
So we're back, and we're talking about a question that you just can't not think of it when you start talking about introverts and extroverts, especially when you learn that extroverts are just getting more of a thrill and a high from life. Like, who's happier? Does that mean that they're happier? And the
Josh
answer,
or Chuck?
Right. The answer, it's yes, they are happier.
No, it's not.
It is too. I mean, study after study shows that they report a greater subjective well-being than people who score as introverts on these personality tests.
I just don't want to believe this. I mean, I think to me, this is a little bit of a chicken or the egg thing. Mm-hmm. Are they happier because they go to more parties? I know that's a very basic way to look at it.
Yeah.
And go to more concerts and public events and things that are more fun. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's a very narrow view of what happiness is, though.
So, but that seems to be like one of the big explanations for why they would be happier, is it presumes that social functions and being around other people is rewarding and a positive experience. And so since they're doing that more, they're of course going to be happier. I mean, if you're an introvert, that's just absolutely not true. Being around people is not necessarily a more rewarding experience.
Yeah, that's my point.
You might be happier at your book club, you know?
Right, or painting your figurines all alone.
Right. Yep.
Listening to us.
For sure. But from what I've seen, study after study turns up that extroverts, at least in our current understanding of what subjective well-being is, aka happiness, that like they score higher in that. But again, it doesn't mean that we've captured happiness, kind of like what you were saying.
Yeah, like, hey, if you want to be happy, if you want to kick depression, go to more public events. Yeah, but what's weird, Chuck, is there's some evidence that that's kind of the case, and it's found in like world leaders. There are some world leaders who will out themselves as introverts. I think Justin Trudeau's the most recent one, but apparently Barack Obama, some other like really well-liked, generally well-liked leaders said later that they feel like they were introverts, and everybody's like, "Nah, you lie." And, you know, they really were introverts, but what they did was they pushed themselves to engage in extrovert behavior. And as a result, they were richly rewarded for that. I wonder if Clinton was like, not me, baby. I'm an ambivert. I was all about it. Right. I think Nixon was the last U.S. president that was sort of an admitted introvert. Yeah, case closed. It is a profession, though, where, boy, talk about being around people. Like, campaigning for public office is a slog of meeting strangers.
Yeah.
And the only experience we have with that is live shows, which is really interesting because as an introvert, you do very well on stage. And it's probably something that you push yourself to eventually do. It didn't come naturally to me either, so I had to kind of work through jitters and stuff as well. But I found a distinct difference in my energy levels when we were sort of meeting and greeting before and after shows that we did for a long time.
Yeah.
Because as much as I really enjoyed every single interaction, it is a very draining thing to have to be on, because when you meet someone who's meeting you, they're really up and on.
Right.
So like someone can't come up and say, oh man, I'm such a big listener for years and years. And you can't just go, hi.
I'm really tired right now.
So you got to be up too. And like what we did times a gazillion is a politician running for office.
Right, exactly, because you really want something from those people, which is their vote, you know? So you got to be on. I know exactly what you mean. But
I can imagine that drain.
The fact is, though, you and I do push ourselves to go out on stage, and we can both report that it's really, really rewarding to do that.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
There are a few things that make you feel as good as coming off stage after like a show that you just knew was a good show, right?
Yeah.
So there is, at least anecdotally from our perspective, there is evidence that pushing yourself to do extroverted activities is rewarding, could increase your happiness. But the reason why it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, you have to be an extrovert to be happy, is that it's possible our society is really ignoring a lot of the stuff that would make anybody happy that's associated with introverted behavior too, because our society places a tremendous amount of value on extroverted traits, basically.
Yeah, and on the live show thing, like, and I've heard this from touring musicians, there's definitely an energy exchange that leaves you, like, I have a hard time going to sleep after in the hotel, but when we were going out for like, 6 or 7 shows in a row, I would find in the week after I got home was a challenge for me.
Oh, yeah?
And I've heard that from touring musicians that, you go on these big rock and roll tours or whatever. Rock and roll tours. So square.
Yeah.
And then afterward, like, you go back home to your family, and like that's why a lot of those marriages and families break up, because it's just really a stark difference. It can leave you kind of depressed even, I think.
Why can't you be more like the groupies?
Right.
I'm sure that doesn't fare very well.
They'll do anything.
Yeah. So, the thing is, if you look at how, at least I should say Western society, I think I said society before, but Western society really places a lot of value on extroverted behaviors, being outgoing, being friendly, being sociable, being a leader, being unafraid, captain of industry kind of stuff. Like, look at our movie stars. We don't have introverted movie stars typically.
I don't agree with that, actually. I think there's a lot of introverted movie stars.
Okay, but do they behave introverted on screen?
Well, no, that's my point. I think that's all the act.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think as real personality goes, I think there are many introverted movie stars.
Right. So if they just acted like their own introverted selves, society wouldn't place any sort of value on that.
They wouldn't be movie stars.
Right, exactly. They place an emphasis on the extroverted behavior they're engaging in. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
So I think that's the point. Like, if you are in our society, if you act extroverted, of course you're going to be happy. But I think we're also missing all of the things that can make an introverted person happy that apply as well.
Yeah, and you can see this in the sort of early mid-2000s when like every office in the world became this big, huge, open warehouse space. Which was, again, for us, for an office of introverts, was just a nightmare for so many people.
It so was.
But I think career advancement in those situations, the boss sees like, so-and-so is always just bopping around, generating ideas, talking to people, like they're going to get more attention than someone who is like, where did my cubicle go?
Yeah, I missed the
Which isn't fair, to have done to everyone.
But that's that Western emphasis on extroverted behavior. Same with brainstorming sessions. That's the opposite of what introverts want to do. And it's also the opposite of what research shows that an introverted person is going to thrive in. They're not going to come up with their best ideas in that setting. They're going to come up with their best ideas like alone on a walk or something.
Yeah, you know what they should do? It's interesting. Like a really good boss, I think, would gather the people for the meeting and say, all right, so coming up next, we need to solve this problem. We're going to have a big brainstorming session for anyone who wants to stay. But if you want to go back to your office and really have some alone time to think about this, then do that.
Right.
Like offer up both alternatives.
Yes, exactly. I think that's great. The ambivert way.
Up with ambiverts. As far as the idea of who is healthier.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
It's really easy to say that here, let's just say this. What's happened with all of the information that we found is there's been a lot of misinterpretation of studies and data where the press will basically say if you're an introvert, you're more prone to anxiety, and people that are more prone to anxiety are more prone to have heart attacks. So introverts are more prone to have heart attacks.
Right, precisely. And what they're doing is maybe they're talking about a study, but they're more often than not trying to put a scientific gloss on just a popular myth.
Right.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. There was another study that looked at people who have really negative outlooks on life and have heart disease and compared them to people who are less negative and have heart disease and looked at health outcomes. And of course, the more negative people had worse health outcomes. And of course, the headline was introverts experience more health problems, study suggests, kind of thing. And the introverts was nowhere in the study. Anywhere.
Right.
They didn't use it anywhere, but that got converted to introverts. That is a huge problem. At the very least, it is in public opinion. But the bigger problem is we as the public can be forgiven to just kind of just take that up. It's not our job. We're just kind of interested in that kind of thing. And we can be forgiven for making those mistakes. What shouldn't be forgiven is when psychologists and other people working in these fields do that same thing. Make those mistakes, use that shorthand, and take this as anything more than just a model that is a work in progress at best right now.
Right, and also the notion that we've got it all figured out when it comes to connecting health with personality. That is a lot of hubris to suggest that. So there's still so much more, I think, that's going to be uncovered when connecting things like heart disease and depression,
right,
and stuff like that. We just don't know.
Yeah, we just don't know. And that's a good thing to remember when it comes to introversion and extraversion. And there's people out there that say, I think a lot of this is just basically bunk, if not all of it together. That their premise is basically what we've been talking about, that people are just too complex to put into a set of categories. And the big five personality traits is probably the most complex and robust personality inventory that we've come up with yet, but it's still 5 different categories that that interact with one another. And it seems really primitive when you step back and look at that, when you consider just how complex not just people are, but the experiences people have on a moment-to-moment basis that influence our moods and our decisions and our behavior too.
Yeah, and there are people who can solidly be like, oh no, I'm 100%, well, Jung said that's not possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would consider themselves like, I'm an introvert, trust me, I'm an introvert. Or someone who is clearly an extrovert. There are those people that have maybe very, very little overlap with the other.
Right.
But with anything on a spectrum, it's just, I don't know. It's very personal. I think it's super interesting to think about for yourself because I think it helps you navigate the world if you kind of think about it. But I also think you can overthink that stuff.
Yeah, some people say that what you just described is actually harmful, that people will start to act to type.
Right.
If they are like, well, I'm an introvert, I guess I might as well not go to that party, and they miss meeting, a new friend, or they don't take on that project at work that would open a new door for them. Like some people say this kind of stuff is harmful, labeling people like that, rather than giving everybody hey, some people are like this, there's this behavior, there's that behavior, and just letting people be as they are. that's a much better idea.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah. And then lastly, the other thing, Chuck, is, okay, so let's say the big 5 personality inventory, it becomes just more and more robust, and it becomes clear that, yes, this thing is absolutely accurate, and you can use it to predict the behavior of anybody. Like, would we want to even have that in existence? Do we want to know people like that? And, like, if we did have something that was that accurate, like, what ends would it be used to?
Right.
You know? It's just a question to chew on, especially if you're an introvert.
Yeah, these are my favorite ones. I like the ones where we can just dish, you know?
Yeah, I love dishing with you. Let's see. You got anything else?
I got nothing else.
I don't have anything else either. And since both of us said that, of course it means it's time for listener mail.
I'm going to call this pronunciation support. Not in the way that you might think.
Okay.
Hey guys, love the show. Writing to urge you to be less hard on yourselves and less accepting of criticism from listeners about so-called language mistakes.
Nice.
For example, in the recent Roe v. Wade episode, Chuck at first pronounced substantive with the accent on the second syllable and instead of substantive, and it made such an impression on him that he made fun of himself later in the episode. I tend to do that. Yitzy. This is from Yitzy, by the way.
Okay.
Well, as it happens, both Oxford and Merriam Webster document Chuck's pronunciation of the word as such. And Josh, check out what some dictionaries have come to say about contemporary versus contemporaneous.
Oh boy, I'm excited about this one.
The truth is that even dictionaries are nothing more than snapshots in time of how language is used, and imperfect ones at that. I might recommend doing an episode on linguistic descriptivism. In short, language is basically a game in which the object is to communicate.
Right.
It's pretty rare for you guys as native English speakers to use English in a way that could, by any meaningful metric, be considered a mistake. Maybe a linguistic descriptivism episode would put to bed some of the more pedantic criticisms you seem to get from listeners.
That's a great idea.
Nah, who am I kidding?
Did Yitzy say that?
Yeah.
Nice.
So, with many fondness, I'm not even sure if that's correct. But
they got the point across.
Exactly. And that's from Yitzy Lindenbaum, my new favorite listener. And then when I told Yitzy that I was reading this, they were back and said, yes, I'm going to be the coolest member of my Descriptivist Linguistics Club this week.
Nice.
I love that that's a club.
Man, Yitzy's great. I'm going to take Yitzy's advice and really unload on the next person who writes in to tell us we mispronounced something.
Yeah, tell him to sick Yitzy on him.
That's right. Tell him Yitzy sent you. Well, if you want to be like Yitzy and just be totally great, you can take a shot at it in an email. Send it off to stuffpodcast@iheartradio.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
This is Tamara Judge from Two Teas in a Pod with Teddy Mellencamp and Tamara Judge. Tamara here. As you know, my dog Rugby is like one of my kids, and I don't play around when it comes to taking care of him. Chewy is where I get everything he needs. He loves food, so always stocking up on treats and toys from Chewy, which my husband Eddie likes to buy for him. It always shows up fast, which is exactly how I like things. Chewy also handles the serious stuff, prescriptions, pet insurance, and the telehealth vet visits. And now they're opening up vet clinics across the country. And their 24/7 customer service, they just understand pet people. Plus, with Chewy's 1-year satisfaction guarantee, trying new things is never stressful. Chewy just makes caring for Rugby easier, and that matters to me. For life with pets, the answer is Chewy. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping at chewpanions.chewy.com/teapod.
Joy is essential and it's also elusive. But now there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration, support, and useful tools to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Listen to Joy 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.